The other motion is by Honorable Denita Gatti on the provision of assistive devices and required medical items free of charge to persons with disabilities. And finally, a motion by Honorable Mishi Mboko on the continuation of the Kazi Mtaani program. The Honorable Member in her motion, which will be moved, says that aware that the National Hygiene Program, dubbed Kazi Mtaani, is a national initiative that was designed to cushion the most vulnerable but able-bodied citizens living in informal settlements from the effects and response strategies of the COVID-19 pandemic, acknowledging that the first phase of the program started in 2020, covering 8 counties, employing over 26,000 workers, while the second phase, which began in July 2020, was expanded to cover 34 counties, employing over 200,000 workers. If you're just joining us, this is coming to you live from the National Assembly chambers. The Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Moses Chiboy, is in the chambers. Let's listen in.
Honorable members, let's pray. Almighty God, who in your wisdom and goodness have appointed the offices of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor as your servants, whom you have been pleased to call to performance of important trust in this republic. Let your blessings descend upon us here assembled. Grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under deliberations in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you've committed to our charge. Amen. Order, members. On the face of it, we do not have the required quorum, and therefore I order the bell to be rung for 10 minutes.
The National Assembly is short of quorum this morning, and according to the standing orders of the House, that is Standing Order number 34, which talks about quorum at commencement of the House. A quorum of the House or of a committee of the whole House shall be 50 members. If there is not a quorum present when the chair is taken at the time appointed for a meeting of the House, immediately after the saying of the prayer, the Speaker shall order the bell to be rung for 10 minutes, just like the Deputy Speaker has ordered. And if no quorum is present at the expiration of the 10 minutes, the Speaker may direct that the bell be rung for a further 5 minutes. And if there is still no quorum present, the Speaker shall adjourn the House forthwith to the next sitting. But of course, we are waiting for that quorum to be achieved, and what happens in the background when the House has no quorum to commence business, then respective leadership of the House will be just walking around, be it the lounge or anywhere else where the members may be, and they will be mobilizing these members to come to the chambers to allow for the business of the National Assembly to begin, considering the volume of business that is before this House this morning. There are motions which will be moved and debated and considered. One of them is the continuation of the Kazi Mtaani program by the Honorable Member for Likoni, Honorable Mishimboko. The member is concerned that the effects of COVID-19 pandemic are still prevalent, and the country will take a long time for the economy to stabilize. This House, therefore, resolved that the national government rolls out subsequent phases of the Kazi Mtaani program to cover all the 47 counties to address youth unemployment and further cushion the vulnerable members of society, and views the current remuneration of the workers in accordance with the wage order of 2018. That motion will be moved, debated and considered by the National Assembly. Another motion which we highlighted earlier is one by the Honorable Member Mary Wamaua, and it's on the establishment of database centers in all civil registration centers in the country. That this House urges the national government to establish database centers in all civil registration centers for purposes of storing all the necessary information required for issuance of birth certificates to all children, and puts in place administrative mechanisms to ensure that every child is automatically issued with a birth certificate before the child attains the age of 3 years. That motion will be moved by the Honorable Member Mary Wamaua. The Honorable Member Denita Gatti will move a motion on the provision of assistive devices and required medical items free of charge to persons with disabilities. That this House urges the national government to provide assistive devices and required medical items and requirements free of charge to persons with disabilities at the constituency level through government hospitals or any other government body, and to put in place mechanisms for replacement of worn-out devices to enable them live a dignified life, be more productive, and to coexist with other people in the society. That motion will be moved by the Honorable Member Denita Gatti, who is representing persons with disabilities in the National Assembly. Questions will be asked by various members to various heads of government departments, and this mostly cabinet secretaries. The member for Kimilili constituency, Honorable Didmas Barasa, will ask the cabinet secretary for energy what is the status of electricity connectivity in Kimilili constituency from 2017 to date for public institutions, particularly public schools and health centers and trading centers and households. Could the cabinet secretary provide specific timelines within which all the said public institutions, households and trading centers will be connected to electricity? We are still waiting for the House to collate. It seems like the numbers which is required has not yet been achieved, but hopefully it will be achieved shortly.
Now, confirming that we have already over 40 members in the chamber, and I'm sure there are others in the holding areas, we can now start our business.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Under this particular order, we have the leader of majority party, I believe represented by the majority whip. You have the floor.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay, on behalf of the majority leader, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Thursday, November 5th, 2020. 1, the second quarterly report from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission for the period covering 1st April 2020 to 30th June 2020. 2, submission of the statutory 6-month preference and reservation report from the Public Procurement Regulatory Authority, KIPRA, for the second half of the financial year 2019-2020, reporting period covering January to June 2020. 3, special audit report of the Auditor General on Muhoroni Sugar Company Limited, MUSCO, which is under receivership. 4, performance audit report on civil registration and dissemination of the vital statistics by the Civil Registration Services from the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government. 5, annual report and financial statements of the Power of Mercy Advisory Committee for the financial year 2019-2020 from the Office of the Attorney General. 6, the Consolidated National Government Investment Report for the financial year 2019-2020 from the National Treasury. 7, reports of Auditor General and financial statements in respect of the following institutions for the financial year ended 30th June 2019. 1, State Department for Interior. 2, State Department for Fisheries, Aquaculture and the Blue Economy. 3, National Intelligence Service. 4, Salaries and Remuneration Commission. 5, National Cohesion and Integration Commission. 6, Independent Policing Oversight Authority. 7, New Kenya Cooperative Creameries Limited. 8, Witness Protection Agency. And 9, State Department for Immigration, Citizenship and Border Control. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. Then we go to the next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Under this particular order, we have the member for Likoni, Honorable Mishi Boko.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion. That's aware that the National Hygiene Program, abbreviated NHP, dubbed Kazi Mtaani, is a national initiative that was designed to cushion the most vulnerable but able-bodied citizen in living in informal settlements from the effects and response strategies of the COVID-19 pandemic. Acknowledging that the first phase of the program started in April 2020, covering 8 counties, employing over 26,000 workers, while the second phase, which began in July 2020, was expanded to cover 34 counties, employing over 200,000 workers, and is expected to run for 6.5 months. Appreciating that the program continues to gradually achieve most of its objectives, which includes, amongst others, provision of economic empowerment to the youth, prioritizing of labor-intensive approaches to extended public works projects, EPWPs, and utilization of local suppliers while giving preference to locally manufactured goods and services. Cognizant of the fact that the program has greatly assisted in the reduction of social vices that arise as a result of poverty and idleness, such as drug abuse and emergence of criminal gangs. Concerned that the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic are still prevalent and the country will take a long time for the economy to restabilize. This House therefore resolved that the national government rolls out subsequent phases of the Kazi Mtaani program to cover all the 47 counties to address youth unemployment and further cushion the vulnerable members of society, and reviews the current remuneration of the workers in accordance with the wage order of 2018. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. So then let's go to the next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Under this particular order, we will start with questions. And we have only ordinary questions. So to start us off is the member for Kimilili, Honorable Didmas Baraza. And I've received notification that the question will be asked on his behalf. by Honorable Benjamin Jomo Ashiali.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to provisions of Standing Order number 42A, sabbatical 5, I rise to ask question number 268 to the Cabinet Secretary for Energy on behalf of Member for Kimilili, Honorable Didmas Barasa. Roman 1, what is the status of electricity connectivity in Kimilili constituency from 2017 to date for public institutions, particularly public schools and health centers and trading centers and households? Roman 2, could the Cabinet Secretary provide specific timelines within which all the said public institutions, households, and trading centers will be connected to electricity? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. That one will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Energy. Let's go to the member for Maragua, Honorable Mary Wamaua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this chance to ask this question to the Cabinet Secretary for RADS and Physical Planning. 1, how many public primary and secondary schools in Maragua constituency have been issued with the title deeds following the presidential directive of 2015? 2, could the Cabinet Secretary explain the delays in fast-tracking surveying and the issuance of title deeds to majority of the public learning institution in Maragua constituency? 3, what measures has the ministry put in place to ensure that all public learning institutions in the country are expeditiously issued with the title deeds to safeguard against the irregular allocation of their RADs? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. That one will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Lands. So we go to the member for Tigania East, Honorable Josephat Kabea.
I'm here, Mr. Speaker. My mic is not functioning.
Is it your mic not functioning, or is the card you don't have?
My card is not responding. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Looking for the question. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for granting me this opportunity to ask a question, again on behalf of the people who are my bosses, the great people of Tigania East. So I'm here to ask question number 297 of 2020, which is directed to the Cabinet Secretary of Interior and Coordination of National Government. So question Roman 1 is asking, when will the administrative units in Tigania East constituency, which were gazetted via the legal notice number 5853 of 21st June 2017, that include new locations and sublocations, be operationalized? Then Roman number 2 is asking, what steps is the ministry taking to ensure that the said administrative units are properly staffed? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
But next time, honorable members, we will not allow members to ask questions or to transact business without using the mask next to the microphone because of the upside of the COVID cases now. It is important that we protect each other. So as you ask questions or as you participate in debate, let your mask be on. It's getting serious. It's quite serious now. So that one will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security. We go to the member for Subukia, Honorable Samuel Hashobe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for the opportunity to ask question 307-2020 to the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development, and Public Works. Roman 1. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain delay in the completion of the construction of Solai Subukia Road, D366, in Subukia constituency? Roman 2. What measures has the ministry put in place to prevent accidents occurring on the said road, noting that majority of them are due to loose chipping, sharp corners, lack of traffic and road signposts, and speed bump, especially at Maseno, Kwamaziwa, Batamoja, and Munyumweru. Roman 3, could the Cabinet Secretary provide timeline when the contractor is expected to remove the loose chipping, elect speed bump, and other important traffic and road signs on the said road, and install culverts for access to various public utilities and institutions such as Kagumo Primary School? Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you very much. That one will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works, and Housing. Then we go to the member for Kisumu Town West, Honorable Lago Alwot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Speaker is Kisumu West, not Kisumu Town West.
Oh, it's Kisumu
Mr.
West.
Speaker,
Actually.
I rise to ask question number 308 of 2020, directed to the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development, and Public Works. Number 1, could the Cabinet Secretary explain to the House the circumstances under which the contractor for the Migosi Mamboleo Junction stretch of the Kisumu-Kakamega-Webuye Highway project abandoned the section, leaving the same in an unmotorable state, which has led to increased tear and wear for motor vehicles? Number 2, when will the contractor for the said stretch resume construction? Number 3, could the Cabinet Secretary undertake to ensure that the works resume as soon as possible and the project will be completed, considering the assurances that were given when the President visited the area in October 2020? Mr. Speaker, 2 weeks ago, the President was again on this road, and the night before the visit, the Kenya engineers tried to make some repairs so that the President could pass on that stretch. It's a shame, Mr. Speaker.
Well, you have asked the question. I would not have encouraged you to do any other side question, because a question that is likely to be answered, actually the one that is going to be responded to, is the one which is in the order paper. The other one might not work, but it's good information. So it will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Public Works and Housing. So then we go to the member for Kabete. That's Honorable Wamashukuru.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is question number 313, year 2020, directed to Cabinet Secretary Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries. 1. Could the Cabinet Secretary outline the government preparedness and response mechanism to drought expected in 2021, as reported by the weather forecast, which indicate that the next rainy season in East Africa will fail, jeopardizing food security for millions of people? 2. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide the quantities and variety of all food reserves within the country, where they are kept, and confirm that the said food is adequate for the country for the predicted drought period? 3. What plans, if any, has the ministry undertaken to ensure that there is food distribution schedules for the vulnerable household who may be affected by the drought or such other calamities in the country? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. That one will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Agriculture. Next is the member for Tigania East again, Honorable Kabeabe. Is this the same one? Yes, no, sorry. Sorry. We go to the member for Kitutu Masaba, Honorable Mose.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this chance to ask question number 314 of 2020, directed to the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development and Public Works. And Roman 1, would the Cabinet Secretary explain why they are upgrading to bitumen standards of Kemera, Kiandege, Eberege, Gachuba, Keumbu Road in Kitut Masaba constituency has stalled, and why the contractor abandoned the site in August 2020. Roman 2, what measures are in place to ensure that the construction of the said road resumes and that the project is completed to the said standards without further delay? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. That will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing. Next is a member for Kibwezi East, Honorable Mbalu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I do arise to ask question number 315 of 2020, and the question is to the Cabinet Secretary for Energy. Mr. Speaker, Roman number 1, the question, I ask, could the Cabinet Secretary provide the electrification plan for all public primary and secondary schools in Kibwezi East constituency, and the status of electricity connectivity of the said institutions? The Speaker, Roman 2, is, could the Cabinet Secretary explain why the solar PV systems installed to provide power to most of the public primary schools for Kibwezi's constituency are either dysfunctional or obsolete, thus compromising, among other programs, the digital learning program? So, Speaker, Roman 3, what measures has the ministry put in place to ensure that the maintenance of the solar PV systems is carried out regularly? And Ramon 4, Mr. Speaker, the question is that what measures has the ministry put in place to ensure that Lower Mukange area of Kibwezi's constituency is connected to the national grid? So, Speaker, I thank you.
Very well. That will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Energy. Lastly, we have the member for Samburu North, Honorable Alois Lentoimaga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, I rise to ask question number 316 of 2020 to the Cabinet Secretary for Energy. Question number 1, what steps has the ministry taken to ensure the following market centers, Morijo, Operoi, Barsaloi, Marti, Nachola, Lesirikan, Tum, and Southor in Samburu North constituency are connected to electricity power from the national grid? Number 2, when will Southor town in Samburu North constituency be connected to power from Sarima Wind Power Electricity Station, as directed by the President during commissioning of Lake Turkana Wind Power Electricity Project in February 2020? Last question, number 3, what measures has the ministry put in place to ensure that Baragoi town is connected to a reliable power, considering that the power generator installed in 2009 to serve Baragoi Hospital and other public institutions in the surrounding areas is dysfunctional? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. That will be replied to before the Departmental Committee again on Energy. That marks the end of questions. What is it, Honorable Sanko? What is it?
Honorable Speaker, I've seen through the order paper today, and I don't see.
Place the card. Yes, you have.
Yes, I don't see if we have any statement. Honorable Speaker, and our statements have been going unanswered, Honorable Speaker, so I'm raising to implore upon your office, Honorable Speaker, because on 15th July 2020, at exactly 2:54 p.m., on the floor of this House, I sought a statement from the Minister, the CS of... I sought a statement from the CS in charge of roads and infrastructure, Honorable Speaker, on the issue of SGR Phase 2B that was terminated at a remote locality of a Murutoto shopping center, which has one shop and one butchery, instead of completing the remaining 12-kilometer stretch to Narok Town. Honorable Speaker, Narok Town will have served as an economic catchment area for Greater Lake regions, Honorable Speaker.
Just a minute, Honorable Sanko. You know, the issue that you are raising is that you sought a statement which has not been responded to. I don't want you to go to the details, because those details, you can actually utilize them when the question, when the statement is being responded to. So
Honorable Speaker, but it is intentional. It has been intentional that they are not answering our questions.
That is imputing a motive against your
the
colleague.
CS.
Let me just take your seat. Let me get to know. Do we have the relevant committee chair in the House, or at least the vice chair, or even a member who has information? Now, I can't see any of them. Now, Honorable Sanko, when you sought that statement, is it a statement or was it a petition? It's a statement. Well,
Honorable Speaker,
you have to be very clear about what you are talking about.
Honorable
Speaker, it's a statement.
It was a petition, Honorable Speaker, and you know, I have information that all those funds were diverted to Standard Gauge Railway to Laikipia. You don't know Laikipia or Nanyuki, and from the dry port to Naivasha,
now,
denying us.
You see the problem, unless you want the statement to end here now.
No.
I think the best thing is for us to, try and get to know. Did you say it's a petition or a statement?
It was a statement.
No, I don't think you are confident enough.
No, I'm very confident. Honorable Speaker, let me give you the correct position, Honorable Speaker. It is very easy because I still have everything here. You know, Honorable Speaker, I'm digital, so it's so easy.
Now, the issue, the reason why I'm insisting, Honorable Sanko,
yes, sir,
is because the circumstances of response to a statement.
It was actually a petition.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Now you've taken us round and round.
And on 15th July.
Which means within 60 days, of course, it has lapsed if the chair did not seek an extension. So would you allow us an opportunity to... Now, in absence of the majority leader, probably the majority whip will take that one up. Let us get to know what really happened, why the petition has not been responded to. So Honorable Sankoki, we can wait for an opportunity where we have got information from the chair, because, petitions lapse after 60 days if they are not responded to. So we want to know the issues, and then we'll be able to communicate.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. May God bless you.
Let's proceed now to statements. And statements, we have the Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security, who will be issuing two statements on request by the Honorable Ashiali and by Honorable Pasaris, Rosana. I don't know if it's Rosana, Rosanne, or Rosa Anna, but that is still Honorable Pasaris.
Okay.
So we start with which one?
We'll start with Pasaris.
Okay, proceed.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Speaker. First of all, before I read the statement, Honorable Speaker, I want to give you a bit of the background of this particular statement because I want to thank Pasaris for her indulgence because this statement was supposed to have been done sometimes in the month of June. But Honorable Speaker, when we got that particular statement, we were being played on a ping pong between the Ministry of Devolution and the Ministry of Interior because the Ministry of Interior were claiming that the issue of food was the Ministry of Devolution. Devolution was saying the issue of pandemic food was the Ministry of Interior. But finally, Honorable Speaker, I have the answer for Honorable Pasaris, and thank you for your indulgence, Honorable Pasaris. Honorable Speaker, I wish to state as follows, that the government through the COVID-19 Emergency Response Fund and regional, county, and sub-county emergency response teams is committed to ensure that no citizen lose life due to hunger during the COVID-19 pandemic period. In particular, the government has, 1, identified the profile 29,292,000 vulnerable persons in Nairobi City County who benefited from cash stipend during the COVID-19 pandemic. A total of Kenya shilling 620 million have so far been disbursed through M-Pesa weekly cash transfers to the vulnerable in the county of Nairobi. Honorable Speaker, secondly, they have drilled and rehabilitated 100 boreholes in the county to ensure constant safe water supply during the period. And thirdly, Honorable Speaker, they have also recruited 63,872 youth in Nairobi Hygiene Program, Kazi Mtaani Program, to alleviate their vulnerability to the effects of the pandemic. And fourthly, Honorable Speaker, relief food distributed as follows: 30,914 kilograms of maize, 15,220 kilograms of rice, 29,714 kilograms of sugar, 12,996 kilograms of beans, 13,074 kilograms of green grams, 27,000 kilograms of wheat, 3,593 kilograms of salt, 4,885 liters tins cooking oil, and 9,995 packets of cooking fat, 10,000 pieces of bar soap, 7,406 packets of milk, 14,324 100 grams tin of Milo, 22,781 pieces of shopping baskets, 4,948 gumboots, 354 pieces of reflector jackets, and also, Honorable Speaker, 66,394 pieces of face masks distributed to vulnerable groups in the county of Nairobi. Also distributed free sanitizers. Honorable Speaker, in order to ensure that the distribution of relief food in Nairobi County is effective and efficient, a number of criteria were observed, such as: 1, the approvals for emergency relief supply by both public and private agencies was centralized and coordinated through respective sub-counties. And secondly, Honorable Speaker, cash transfers through M-Pesa and issuance of vouchers were made to the identified vulnerable groups. And also, Honorable Speaker, I want to state, Honorable Speaker, that also there was a weekly ration of the repackaged relief food donated by corporate, organization, civil society, and well-wishers was distributed to cater for all the affected families. Honorable Speaker, the government has already distributed all the available relief food and has since been emphasizing on cash transfer program. Honorable Speaker, to add to that, I have been assured that our country is food secure, and as such, we should not panic. And Honorable Speaker, the government is also keeping its keen in ensuring that our economy is up and running almost normally, despite the huge challenge brought about by the coronavirus pandemic, in order to ensure that every Kenyan is able to engage in some form of economic activity so as to earn a decent living. And, Honorable Speaker, we are also encouraging Kenyans to diversify the economic activities and also become more innovative during these very difficult times. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. So then we will give the first shot to Honorable Passaris herself to seek any clarification, if any.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it was very disappointing to see the way I was taken around in circles with this question, from interior to devolution and back to interior. But at least we've got the answer. And in listening to this answer, I'm a bit disturbed, because one of the things that I expected was to see that the government also had a program to supply food to orphanages, old people's homes, etc., in the list. You know, we're talking about cash transfer, but the cash transfer is only going to identified homes, individuals. It's not going to the institutions that are run, whether private or public. There's no way that we're going to see that the government has done something to cushion the very, very vulnerable and the poor in our society. We have always left this to the private sector. But right now, the private sector and people of goodwill are also going through struggles. So the orphanages that we have, it is said when you pass an orphanage and you hear that that orphanage only had bananas for the children in that orphanage. The old people's homes the same. So I feel that the government should do a lot more during this pandemic to provide money for its citizens. Nairobi has over 4 million people. And when you look at the vulnerability, we're talking at least probably 50% of Nairobi who live in the informal settlements, majority of them are vulnerable. And then when you tell me that you've distributed 30,000 bags of maize, surely, what is 30,000 bags of maize? And when you tell me you've given...
Honorable Member for Nairobi County, what is the specific thing you want the chair to respond to? Because the direction I think you are taking is likely to be actually a situation of a debate rather than this.
Yeah, but you know, this is a very emotive issue. I feel I want the chair to actually take ownership of this issue and actually engage through his committee to get to the details and the nitty-gritties on how are we actually, as the Ministry of Interior, if we've taken over the response to COVID pandemic in terms of helping out the most vulnerable, is he himself satisfied as the chair of a committee that this has been done? Because now they're saying the relief food is over. We've spent 630 million. I feel totally that we have let down a lot of the vulnerable citizens in this country. So I hope that the chair, through his committee, will look at how they can also find more resources to cushion the poor.
Okay. Honorable Pukose. Honorable Dr. Pukose.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to thank the Honorable Chair for actually moving from one ministry to the other, interior to devolution, and trying to establish who are the responsible. Honorable Speaker, up to now, I think it needs to come out from the chair very clearly who are responsible, because when we talk about issues of relief food, Honorable Speaker, we have not just vulnerable Kenyans, but we have cases of disaster. As we speak today, we have about 2,000 people in my neighboring constituency of Saboti at a place called Pango Primary School, who have been displaced because of mudslide, and attempts to find out who is responsible, because you want to establish who takes responsibility to make sure that these people who are at Pango are fed. It becomes a challenge, Honorable Speaker.
Okay.
Honorable Speaker, just allow me, please. I want the chair to actually look at the appeal of this and in even the distribution of food, Honorable Speaker. we saw the Cabinet Secretary of Devolution moving from one area to another. And even as members of parliament, we got letters that food was going to be distributed to our constituencies. But up to date, that food has not been distributed. So I want the chair to be able to at least follow this matter to its conclusion so that the food that was meant to other areas, where did that food go? For example, I got a letter for food supply in Endebess, and up to date, that food has not been delivered to Endebess. So
Okay.
who went with that food?
Okay.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Wanyonyi.
Mr. Speaker, I'm getting very concerned, and I think it's good that she asked this question. As just explained by my neighbor, Honorable Pokose, I don't know which ministry deals with disaster. Is it devolution or is it Ministry of Interior? And that maybe, I think let's make it clear, because you have cases out there and there's all confusion. In fact, when she asked that question, it's taken more than 1 month to get, because we don't know which ministry is doing what. However, my concern therefore is that the government should do more. We all stay in Nairobi, we see in Nairobi, there are a lot of vulnerable groups in the streets. I'm just wondering what is happening in our country, honestly, at this stage, at this development era. What has happened? You go out there, there are so many vulnerable people on the streets. And therefore, whoever is responsible, please clear the streets.
So what is
my concern is that,
clarify?
Mr. Speaker, my main concern is that the ministry concerned should do much more than what I'm just hearing from the chairman of the committee.
Okay.
Thank you.
Honorable Makali, Dr. Makali Mulu, and that we will get the chair to respond now.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Well, Honorable Speaker, I think the challenge is that we have multiple sources of information, devolution and internal security. And how I wish, Honorable Speaker, we could get one source so that just as they have centralized the distribution, then they also centralize source of information. I want to comment on the issue of the cash transfers, Honorable Speaker. I'm sure most members of parliament here must be going through problems with their electorate. Because
you know why I have a problem with what the line you want to take, Honorable Makali?
Yes.
Is that this issue was an issue of food distribution.
Yeah, it
so
was,
when you go to cash transfer, you bring in a completely different.
No, you know, Mr. Speaker, what I sit actually in that committee.
Yeah.
So at times we would be calling the Minister for Devolution, who comes and provides piecemeal information, because the other part of the information, it would be then coming from Interior. And I think the issue is centralization, Honorable Speaker. So the way the government functions are shared, that's an executive function. And that's the challenge we have. I wish this kind of function could be under one ministry. That would help this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Let's hear from the chair.
Yeah. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the issue of relief food is usually a continuous program under the Ministry of Devolution. The issue that was with my sister, Honorable Kasaris, is the issue of COVID-19 pandemic. And this food was actually supplied by the Ministry of Interior through a program which was run from Interior. But Honorable Speaker, in regard to relief food, as individuals have been involved in helping, and also the church should also help in giving food. And there are very many programs within the city of Nairobi and within many other areas where organized groups like the church and other groups are giving food to the needy one. So, Honorable Speaker, I think I will take over the issue, but according to me, Honorable Speaker, is actually the Ministry of Interior to be always prepared to disasters like this one which came of pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic. So they're always ready. But the issue of relief food is usually there, Honorable Speaker.
Okay. So then go to the next response.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the other statement was Honorable Washiali. Yes. And Honorable Speaker, I want to state that the Matungu and Mumias ISAP County Security Intelligence Committee had received credible intelligence reports that some goons were planning to disrupt the fundraisings which were to be held at St. Leo Catholic Church and Our Lady of Assumption Catholic Church. The intelligence reports, Honorable Speaker, further indicated that groups of local youth had planned to cause chaos which could have resulted into unnecessary destruction of property and likely injuries to innocent people. Both security committees consequently resolved to cancel the respective meetings to avoid chaos, and the two Catholic priests were informed accordingly, and they concurred with the decision. Honorable Speaker, I note, however, on Saturday, 10th October 2020, the Member of Parliament for Mumias East constituency, Honorable Benjamin Washiali, accompanied by his Matungu counterpart, Honorable Justice Murunga, and former Senator for Kakamega, Dr. Boni Kalwane, amongst others, visited the proposed venue of Harambe St. Leo Catholic Church grounds and incited their supporters against the cancellation. During that incident, the police advised them to disperse peacefully, but they defied the orders, thus prompting the police to use 3 tear gas canisters against the defiant crowd. The gathering amounted to unlawful assembly. Honorable Speaker, there was no tear gas used on Sunday, 11th October 2020 by the police against Christians. The mass commenced at 6 a.m. and ended at 9 a.m. at St. Leo Catholic Church in Mumias East and was presided over by Bishop Joseph Obanyi of Kakamega Diocese, where Honorable Ashiali attended, and the mass ended peacefully. After the mass, Honorable Ashiali left on foot and met in town with Honorable Kalwale and addressed a gathering at about 300 people, after which they left peacefully. Honorable Speaker, at Our Lady of Assumption Church at Matungu, the mass commenced at 7:30 a.m. and ended at 8:30 a.m., led by Reverend Father Humphrey Makoha. The service was peaceful, and the congregants dispersed peacefully, and no tear gas was used. Honorable Speaker, the Public Order Act, Section 5, Chapter 56, Laws of Kenya, is still relevant and practicable in the current constitutional dispensation, and states that any person who elects to attend or participate in public gathering or meeting or public procession shall, pursuant to the law and in particular Section 5 of the Public Act, and thirdly, Honorable Speaker, exercise a sense of civic duty and responsibility and not be in possession of any weapon. At all times, bind themselves to be peaceful and non-violent, and shall keep to designated places of the public meetings. Report incitement to hate speech, incitement to violence, contempt, or any other offenses relevant to authorities. Respect the freedom of expression of other people. Not abuse, exclude, demean, stereotype, or profile of other people. Not propagate insurgency and socio-economic hostility amongst and between Kenyans. Maintain strict observance to law for safety and well-being of everyone, not propagate insurgency and socio-economic hostility amongst and between Kenyans. And finally, Honorable Speaker, maintain strict observance to law for safety and well-being of everyone present. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, as I add, I would like to say that all of us members in this House are seasoned politicians, and we know all the difference between political gatherings and religious gatherings. Let us stop distinguishing political gatherings as religious gatherings. And Honorable Speaker, you know, in Britain, they lost congregation because of taking politics in church. And today, most of the churches in Europe, they don't have congregants because of taking politics in a place where it is a place for spiritual feeding. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable members, as I give just a few members to seek clarification, please let them be clarifications. Let them not be statements and opportunity for debate. Stick the specific statements, clarification you want to get. Let's start with the Honorable Washiani.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, let me, as a matter of procedure, thank my brother, the chair of this committee, Honorable Paul, and also just quickly add that even his own conscience, I'm sure, will not allow him to accept this as a reasonable answer to this statement. Because, Honorable Speaker, in fact, this response raises the issue, the question on whether seeking statements here would actually help us provide the oversight that we really need as a House. You heard the statement he made. Part of his statement, he said that the intelligence reports further indicated that groups of local youth had planned to cause chaos, which could have resulted into unnecessary destruction of property and likely injuries to innocent people. Who told the police that there will be youth? You know, the questions we are asking, and I'm holding supreme law of this country under Bill of Rights, chapter 4, Article 35, 2 reads, every person has the right to the correction or deletion or untrue or misleading information that affects the person. And indeed, if this police went ahead to cancel this function, which was a prayer function, Honorable Speaker.
I'm trying to get the nexus between what you've just read and the specific. Which part did you read of the Constitution?
It's chapter 4, section 35, sabbatical 2. Sabbatical 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have sought the clarification you are seeking from the chair.
Yes.
Is where they got information.
Where they got information, because
So
we have a right. We have a right as the organizers, and what the chair was putting in to complement what the statement he has said about politics. He's talking like the people who are there, because how would you know there would be politics before the function?
Okay.
And Honorable Chair, just before you finish, there is another inquiry I wanted to make. The tear gassing was on 10th, a day before to the function. The function was meant to be 11. And the CS who wrote this answer was very careful, because one of the reasons, and I have a letter from the OCS, one of the reasons why they cancelled was COVID. And he was very careful not to include COVID here, because I would have challenged him, because around the country, there were many other functions, including the would-be chief guest, who was the deputy president,
Okay.
had a function in Machakos.
Okay.
So he
Now
was very careful to avoid that.
You've
that
sought two
as a reason.
clarifications. You've sought two clarifications. So that one I will allow the chair, of course, to respond. Maybe I can take another member, and then we can have the chair responding to this. Now, has Honorable Sankok spoken this morning? Okay.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker.
Oh, you sought us. Okay, anyway, just proceed.
No, on this petition, I'm talking about on this specific petition from my good friend, Honorable Paul Kwenange.
No, that's a statement.
Yes.
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 I want you to distinguish the two.
Yes, Honorable Speaker, English is a bit difficult. Honorable Speaker, what Honorable Washali was asking was the issue of predetermined kind of information that there will be chaos tomorrow. And we pay our security agencies to make sure that there is peace. So theirs was to go there and maintain law and order rather than tear gassing people and congregation in church to disperse them. And whether you are a politician or not, we are also believers. So when I go to church in my capacity as a common Kenyan citizen with Christian faith, then I should not be told, now politicians, these are politicians, even all those who are our campaigners should not go to church, they should stay away from church, and only those who go to church are non-politicians. Where is the line between politicians and non-politicians in this country?
Okay. Honorable Anyonyi. You just spoke on the other one, but you still have, because, oh yeah, I see now another member.
Yeah. Chair, I'm a Kenyan here by right. This question of dispersing the congregation should stop. Should stop forthwith, because I have a right to go to anywhere as a Kenyan. And I've had these cases where some people actually hold meetings and others are stopped from holding meetings with the tear gas in the neighborhood. This actually, Chair, with no due respect, and you advise whoever is telling you to do that to stop, because it's not democratic.
Okay. Honorable Kingola Makau.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I must thank the chair.
We lost you somewhere, so put it again.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the chair for answering that question. Mr. Speaker, I agree with members. Sometimes we don't get satisfactory answers in this House. One, and I want to tell members, this is an opportune time for us to address it now through the BBI. Mr. Speaker, you know now, ministers will be coming from this House and will be asking them directly. So I urge members who are asking for amendments to first read the document so that such questions, Mr. Speaker, will be answered here directly and will have faith. Now, Mr. Speaker, when I look at Honorable Paul Koinange, sometimes he's passing through many hands for him to come with such an answer. And Mr. Speaker, you know, he's belaboring so much because sometimes it's not from him. Mr. Speaker, I wish how it could have been Honorable Koinange being the minister.
Honorable Kingola, are you seeking any clarification, or you are already assisting the chair to respond?
Mr. Speaker, you know, when I listen to Honorable Washari, he's aggrieved. And of course, when I listen to other members, of course it's not good for congregants to be tear gassed. But Mr. Speaker, we must look at the process and the procedure that is happening. And that's why I'm reminding members, we can only cure that through what is at hand now. So Mr. Speaker, allow me to air that, because it's also affecting me and affecting other people. Mr. Speaker, right now, we had the president yesterday, and he talked of congregations and political gatherings. He did not speak of even burials and funerals and many other places. It is upon us, the leaders of this House, that we should educate the masses that tomorrow, when you go for a funeral, you can turn it to be a political arena. Okay. We can also go to a church and make it a political arena. Mr. Speaker, how do you cure that?
All right. So let's have the chair responding to those ones. They are,
Thank you.
I can see there are many members who are interested, but I think we can Because the problem is whenever I'm giving any members are giving statements instead of seeking clarifications. So I will, maybe Chair, so that you can sum it up, I'll give 2 more members. But I will not give you Honorable Pukose. Let me give other members who have not spoken this morning. No, let me give Honorable Kunyidhia, member for Tigania West.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to make a comment on this particular issue.
Let it be straight so that we can save time for another member.
Yes, Honorable Speaker, when we seek for statements in this House, we would like the truth to come out and the facts to be laid out as it were. This particular statement addresses a day after the event, a day after the occurrence. It's not the day of the event itself, which means the answer is as misplaced as it is immaterial. Honorable Speaker, it is very important for us to realize that we have a constitution which prioritizes the power of the people. And also this article that 5 years quoted, which gives people the right to get the correct version of information, whatever it is. So we are giving us the wrong information, we are misleading us.
Okay. Honorable Martin Owino, member for Ndiwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I read the question here and also the answer, and what really strikes me is how specifically they are answered. But also, Mr. Speaker, I observed one thing which is very important, that as a community of members, we should be standing firm when things go wrong, whether it is against you or it is for you. It is interesting that when we were being tear gassed, there were no laugh from my friends. And now, if you are being tear gassed, you make noise. That should stop. Let us be sincere.
Now, yeah, if it is going to be straight, Honorable Pukose, and that should be quick so that we can. Honorable Pukose.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Speaker, Article 4, Chapter 4 of our Constitution, which is the Bill of Rights, in Article number 35, it guarantees the freedom of association, the freedom of movement, and the freedom to gather.
Okay.
I wanted to seek clarification from the Chair. He referred to the Public Order Act, whether the Act is superior to the Constitution. Because when you use the Act to abuse the rights of the individuals to assemble by anticipating that they are going to be chaos, when the Constitution provides that you must provide for security for these people.
Okay. Maybe the very last one here is Honorable Mbui. Very last. Or it's the next.
I think the clarification I was seeking has already been sought by other members.
Okay. So we proceed to the Chair, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, in the statement, it was very clear that the first meeting that was held with people without permission, it was not, there were no police officers, so that's why they are killed. But if he notes, Honorable Washiri, if he notes, the other meetings you had, there was order and there was no problem at all. So what we are saying, Honorable Speaker, we should always be ready to report the meetings we are having, so we just don't have a disorderly meetings and then we have chaos in that. And also, everybody has a right, Honorable Speaker, to make sure that the citizens who come, even in the church, they are safe. Because there are people who are putting two opponent groups, they go in the church, then we have a problem, and that is the problem we had with Honorable Washiri. But that is the information you have, my brother Washiri. As much as I respect Washiri, Honorable Speaker, we must always have order, whether it is outside or in the church, for the sake of maintaining law and order.
Then that marks our statement time, so we go to the next order.
Order number 8, motion. Establishment of database centers in all civil registration centers in the country.
Honorable Wamaua, proceed then.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this chance to move this motion, that aware that the Constitution and the Kenya Citizenship and Immigration Act 2011 provide that every citizen is entitled to any document of legislation or identification issued by the state to citizens, including a birth certificate. Further aware that Article 53(2) of the Constitution of Kenya provides that a child's best interests are of paramount importance in every matter concerning the child. Cognizant of the fact that issuance of birth certificate during civil legislation associated with children is a challenge across the country due to, among other issues, missing information for the parents and children. As a result, missing and improper documentation, managed manual document, and lack of legislation of children born outside the hospital environment. Deeply concerned over the delays and the long queues at the civil legislation centers and the challenges affecting legislation of children by the Ministry of Education using the National Education Management Information Systems, NIMIS. Madam Speaker, sir, there is a lot of noise here. Protect me.
Order, 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 members. Order, order. The members who are leaving the chamber, please do so with some decorum. And again, the ones who are consorting, please consort in a low tone for us to protect the member, the Honorable.
Yeah, thank you,
Mary
Madam Speaker.
Maua, who is moving the motion on establishment of database centers in all civil registration centers in the country. Carry on, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This House urges the government to establish database centers in all civil registration centers for purpose of storing all the necessary information required for issuance of birth certificate to all children, and put in place administrative mechanism to ensure that every child is automatically issued with a birth certificate before the child attains the age of 3 years. Madam Speaker, I thought of this motion out of the so many problems that we are getting from the parents who are really trying to access the birth certificate, out of the ministry policy that all children in our schools, both secondary and primary, should be registered using the birth certificate. Madam Speaker, civil legislation is an act of registering births and deaths in a country to capture data of the population threads. And Madam Speaker, this assists the government in planning to render services to its people. Therefore, Madam Speaker, in those legislation centers, that is where we go to register for the birth certificate. And that is there for birth registration is registering a child's birth. And this is the first right that any child gets after birth. Madam Speaker, birth registration not only guarantees a child's right to a name and nationality, but it is also a fulfillment of a wide range of other rights and the requirement to access other identification documents like the national ID. We usually provide the birth certificate. And Madam Speaker, by virtue that the Ministry of Education now has made it a must that any child who is to be registered in a school or even secondary has to have this birth certificate so that the information can be captured, and that is why we have now the name is being used. Madam Speaker, the legislation entitles a child to a birth certificate which is issued from the returns compiled by the Registrar of Birth. Madam Speaker, in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child recognizes birth registration as a fundamental human right. And Madam Speaker, there are so many other laws that we have passed in this country which gives legality framework for birth legislation in Kenya. Madam Speaker, we have the Article 12B of the Constitution that states that every citizen is entitled to a Kenyan passport and any document of legislation or identification issued by a state to its citizens. Madam Speaker, we also have another legal framework, Article 53(2) of the Constitution of Kenya, which provides that a child's best interests are of paramount importance in every matter concerning the child. And therefore, when our parents are looking for this birth certificate and they are denied out of the challenges that are facing, the records that are usually asked, this child, we are denying him or her or his paramount importance in acquiring the same. Madam Speaker, we also have Section 22(1)(g), 1 in Roman number, of the Kenya Citizenship and Immigration Act 2011. It still states on the importance of acquiring this document. Madam Speaker, we also have the Birth and Deaths Legislation Act Cap 149, which also governs the legislation of the births in Kenya. So, Madam Speaker, there are so many challenges that are coming as a result of missing this birth certificate. But before I go to the challenges that we have, Madam Speaker, and the reason why I came up with the motion is that the moment a child acquires this document, it gives proof to the age of this child. It also ensures that a child can be enrolled in a school at the appropriate age, because this is the document, and today what is really proving the age of that child, so that this child can be enrolled. So the moment we do not get it as the parents require it as a requirement from the primary and the secondary school, then we are denying a right which is supposed to be given. Madam Speaker, also, a child's social and economic rights are also protected, like to the education, protection from physical abuse, forced labor, and even marriage. And this is the same document that we usually use to be able to tell what is the age of this child. And that is why we prove that this is a minor and has been sexually abused. That is how we are able to tell that if the child is being subjected to rape, while else she has not acquired the age that is supposed to be. Madam Speaker, out of the same birth certificate, it also gives a proof of age that one is able to apply for an ID card. For an ID card and to prove that you have attained 18 years, you are supposed to provide a birth certificate which is a proof to say that you have already acquired the age, and therefore it is rightfully your time to be able to apply and to be given an ID, so that you can be able to get into other areas that the government has allowed, or the Constitution, a right like to vote, because you have already acquired. Madam Speaker, therefore, that is why I'm saying we need to urge the government to use the technology stride that this country has made and establish database centers for purposes of storing and harmonizing all the necessary information required for the issuance of the birth certificate. Madam Speaker, there are several challenges that we are facing when our parents go to acquire the birth certificate for their children, and more so than before, because right now it is a must, and at young ages of our children, because this is the same document that will assist them to be enrolled in school. Madam Speaker, the challenges that our parents are getting is missing information for the parents and the children as a result of missing and improper documentation. Madam Speaker, when our parents go to the civil legislation centers, there are these documents that they are told to provide so that they can be able to fill up the forms and maybe be in a state to be issued with a birth certificate. But Madam Speaker, because there is nowhere this information are stored, sometimes the mother is being asked for information and the documents from the father. And Madam Speaker, sometimes it is very stressful when this mother remembers that by the time she gave birth to this child, she was married. And later on, the marriage broke. And being told to go and get an ID copy from the person who had married her, And sometimes you find that these marriages end up in a way that the woman is almost to be killed by this man. It is very stressful, and we cannot allow this to continue when we know this country is already on its technology lines, and we can be able to store this information in a way that if the mother broke with the husband, the child will not be denied to get the birth certificate just because the mother is being told to provide a copy of an ID for the father who gave birth.
Honorable member, you know you always have 10 minutes in moving a motion, as we did resolve in this house. So please allow me give you a minute to just say that you're moving it. It's a matter of procedure. So
thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me an extra 2 minutes. Madam Speaker,
I did not give you 2 minutes, honorable member. I actually said half a minute.
Thank you. I stand collected, Madam Speaker. Out of all those challenges that our constituents are facing to acquire the birth certificate, that is why I was moving the motion, and I now request Honorable Member Thuku from Kinangop to second. Madam Speaker.
Please, I'm giving you the right way to do it. Just you beg to move.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move the motion.
Correct. That is well the member for the Honorable Maua. The seconder?
And I request Honorable Kwenya Thuku, member of Kinangop constituency,
the Honorable
to second.
Kwenya Thuku for seconding the motion.
There's something wrong with the system. We are all on.
Honorable Kwenye for seconding. I also do order from where I sit that the officers managing the system, you look into it.
Honorable Speaker, they might have disrupted the order.
Order, honorable member. The fact that the system is indicating microphone on your, it does not give you the authority to speak. You're actually out of order. Honorable Kwenye. You must catch the speaker's eye for you to be given, but you cannot speak anyhowly.
But now it took off.
Honorable Kwenye, please use the dispatch box as I order the systems to be put in place. Of course, the public should know that the Parliament is digital.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have to learn to use this space because I'm not used. But all the same, I wish to second motion by the Honorable Maua on establishment of database in every civil registry for purposes of registration of birth certificates. And Madam Speaker, you realize that we've been going through a lot of problems, especially members of Parliament, because we keep getting calls from our constituents when time is ripe for our kids to get their birth certificates. And I think this is an error that we need to correct as a Parliament, because it's easy as we are in information age, whereby we only need to establish, the government needs to establish a software that is going to be universal, such that when a child is born from whichever hospital in the Republic of Kenya, they're able to register the same real time. All we need to make sure is that the software is tamper-proof, so that once that information is entered, that information cannot be interfered with. The Honorable Maua has said something that is very pertinent. You see, there are kids who are born within the confines of wedlock, others out of wedlock, but they have a father. And at the moment when they are born, maybe the families are together. After which, if the families break, they suffer their right to access these documents when time is come for them to get registered, whether it's in primary school or they want other documents like the identity card, because the primary document is the birth certificate. And therefore, Madam Speaker, I think it is time now that we just be like any other country. I mean, like, for example, like the US, whereby when a child is born, they are registered real time. The father must sign documents to say this is my child, and then that document is captured in their system. So that then, by the time this child, even if the so-called original paper, that is the birth certificate, is lost, you can access that information from the, from the systems that we have by just keying in number that is unique to every citizen. And I think that is where we are getting to with the Huduma number. And I hope that this problem of long queues that we're experiencing in our civil registries, with our candidates, especially who are in class 8 when they're getting registered for KCPE, is going to be cured. Madam Speaker, I also have noted that there are a lot of bureaucracies that can be cured by just establishment of these databases. The databases could be temporal in nature because once all the information is captured, because we have to work in retrospect, as there are so many kids whose births have not been registered. Then from there going forward, maybe you can have a sunset clause by saying a sunset time where we say from now going forward, all births are going to be registered in the hospitals that the kids are born. And therefore, Madam Speaker, in line with the motion that has been moved by Honorable Wamaua, I wish to second and to say this is the way to go. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well. Honorable Kwenya, it is important for us to go into rev that you are seconding. Please move as a matter of procedure that you beg to second.
For purposes of clarity, Madam Speaker, I second.
You second. Yeah, that's a procedure of the House because the motion is always moved and seconded. And now, members, allow me propose the question to motion number 8, which that are aware that the Constitution and the Kenya Citizenship and Immigration Act 2011 provide that every citizen is entitled to any document of registration or identification issued by the state to citizens, including a birth certificate. Further aware that Article 53(2) of the Constitution of Kenya provides that a child's best interests are of paramount importance in every matter concerning the child. Cognizant of the fact that issuance of birth certificates during civil registration associated with children is a challenge across the country due to, among other issues, missing information for the parents and children as a result of missing and improper documentations, damaged manual documents, and lack of registration of children born outside hospital environments. Deeply concerned of the delays and long queues at civil registration centers and the challenges affecting registration of children by the Ministry of Education using the National Education Management Information System, that the name is, in the country. This House urges the government to establish database centers in all civil registration centers for purposes of storing all the necessary information required for issuance of birth certificates to all children and puts in place administrative mechanisms to ensure that every child is automatically issued with a birth certificate before the child attains the age of 3 years. Members, I give the first floor to the member for Saboti, the Honorable Luyai Hamisi. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to support the motion. Madam Speaker, a birth certificate is an essential certificate in the life of a child in this country, and it is good. Just like somebody said, that this land we've not inherited from our forefathers, but we have borrowed it from our children, and we must return it with interest. So it's important that our laws are geared towards protecting the rights of our children, our future generation, and that is a very progressive motion in that we are going to ensure that all our children are guaranteed their certificates, which are very important. This is the certificate that will lead to the acquisition of national ID. It's a certificate that will recognize you as a citizen by birth. And you know, we've had various arguments on people how to prove their citizenship And a birth certificate is such an essential document in this country that must be acquired without any challenges. And having a database in every small centers enables even those members of the country who comes from interior, where acquisition of this document has proved difficult, either because of the long trek to the centers, or even lack of proper centers, or lack of even proper government equipments to give them. And Madam Speaker, some of these certificates they are so essential to the fact that they have even given people jobs in this country. There are people who have been in the cabinet just by a birth certificate. It is that important. And if a birth certificate only can give you a government job, then it is paramount that as legislators, we make sure that every Kenyan can acquire this document without much difficulties. And this is not alien. We don't operate in a vacuum as a country. Nations are progressing. The world is going techno-savvy. And we cannot afford to remain behind as a nation when the rest of the world, in globalization context, we are putting everything in the database. And in fact, all documents, including the national ID, including even the voter's card, we do not need to carry all these documents in our wallet. You find we have big wallets, but they have money, but it's full of documents. So we need to, each and every necessary document that is required as in the essential in acquisition of services in this country is put in a proper national database where we can all access. You can actually tap on a person's PIN number, and you're able to access all details on him, where he is born, where he or she is born, the parents. It's not very difficult to track somebody in terms of his lineage, family lineage, in terms of his heritage. It is easier for a whole nation to be able to access every person from his family background, from where he comes from, the county, and whatever. So it is very important, and Madam Speaker, I rise to support. Thank you.
I rise to support. I like your statement that Kenyans will have huge wallets without money, but full of documents. Good argument. So, honourable members, before I give the next member, the members, I request that you please log in your cards again. The ones who have not been logged in, as you're aware, after we ordered that the system be put in place, especially the ones who had your cards, your systems in red. But so far I have 13 requests, so be careful also, even as you can confirm with the clerk whether you indicated them. Next on my request list is the member for Igembe South, the member for Igembe South, Honorable Mwirigi Paul.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you. Madam Speaker, I rise to support this motion. Madam Speaker, in every institution nowadays, the first request, you are requesting to submit or to produce a birth certificate. And it's unfortunate, Madam Speaker, to realize that even today, a person of 20 or more years, Madam Speaker, has no birth certificate. So it is good to establish the database in every civil registration, so that in that civil registration, Madam Speaker, the information concerning any person, Madam Speaker, within that specific region or area, Madam Speaker, can be contained in one document whereby, if required, Madam Speaker, you can access the whole information of that person, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, also it will be easy for the issuance of the birth certificate to the young ones or to the children to the kids who are born, Madam Speaker, because in every school now, Madam Speaker, in the primary schools, Madam Speaker, every child to register an examination, Madam Speaker, you are supposed to produce a birth certificate. And if you do not have that birth certificate, Madam Speaker, you are sent away, hence contributing to the failure in studies, Madam Speaker, in a class. Also, when somebody wants to acquire a passport, Madam Speaker, something which you are requested to produce, the birth certificate. And when we will be having this database, Madam Speaker, in every civil registry, this, the information which will be required for somebody to be registered will be at hand, and it will be easy for somebody to be registered. So it is a good idea, Madam Speaker, and if this idea will be established, many of our kings, Madam Speaker, will benefit from the birth certificate. Madam Speaker, also this will reduce the congestion in the civil registries, Madam Speaker, because in some of the registries, of the civil registries, Madam Speaker, you will meet very long queues there, Madam Speaker, for people who are applying for the birth certificate, Madam Speaker, whereby people spend months and months, Madam Speaker, before someone is registered to get a birth certificate of our kin. Also, Madam Speaker, this will enable many areas or many sub-counties, Madam Speaker, to benefit from the birth certificate, because currently we have very few civil registries within our regions where we come from. For example, in my constituency, Madam Speaker, I serve more than 5 districts which come at Maua, Madam Speaker, to seek for the birth certificate, whereby you get congestion, or you get very many people who come to apply there without getting the certificate in a required time because of the large number, Madam Speaker. So if this motion, Madam Speaker, will pass, which I pray, Madam Speaker, it will help many Kenyans, Madam Speaker, to acquire birth certificate for their kings. I beg to support. Thank you.
Very well. The member for Bondo, Honorable Ogola Ochanda, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, from an outset, let me disabuse one fact that I think it has been mentioned by one member or the other. A birth certificate is not an indicator of citizenship. And if one bothers to check, there's a very nice statement below. There's a statement below in the certificate itself that indicates very clearly that this is not an indicator of citizenship. So it is not. It's not supposed to be used for that purpose. The second thing that I wanted to bring around, Mr. Speaker, is that I agree with the motion in terms of the principle and the way we realize some of these things as a country. The difficulties, the challenges that we go through when we are dealing with the issues of registration of births. I may only want to disagree in terms of one, which I will want to convince the move at one moment, that there is no need really for these centers. We need to make this exercise simple, much, much more simpler. Coming up with centers brings in more bureaucracy for nothing. We have one law that deals with births and deaths. Do you know it's so easy to register death? It's done by assistant chiefs and chiefs. You are given a burial certificate, and the following day you use your burial certificate to get a death certificate. It's much more easy. But it is so difficult to get a birth certificate. Why? Is it that the government wants us to
Order. The Honorable Ngedi, are you on a point of order? No. Yeah, the members who are on intervention, please, if you're not on intervention, please remove your cards from there. Because always that is an indicator.
She has taken my minute, Madam Speaker. Now,
carry on.
So, Madam Speaker, what I was trying to get to is that this process needs to be simple and much more simpler than the way it is. And then when the registration of births is being done by a department that is completely different from another one that requires these birth certificates, I think there needs to be some order. There needs to be some communication. When the Ministry of Education insists on using birth certificates for purpose of exams and everything else, yet it is not them who issues birth certificates. They don't know the difficulties that people go through in terms of getting birth certificate. So there must be some communication between this department that really requires and really needs a birth certificate and that department that really issues the birth certificate. At the moment, there is a disconnect. The ministry insists, Ministry of Education insists, for purposes of exams and for purposes of registering students and pupils, insists, but it's not their mandate to issue birth certificates. So the certificates are given by a completely different department that has no communication with this. So there is a big problem. And I don't understand why the government wants to let the public, wants to let citizens suffer for simple things like this birth certificate. I'm trying to say this, that now that they have failed in digitalizing these processes, let them remain manual, and when they remain manual, let them handle it the way they are handling deaths. Let births be handled the way they are handling deaths. Birth certificate is basically for one simple reason. That is confirmation that you were born and you were born on which date. Kusha, there's nothing else. Yeah? So why should this be a big problem? So, Madam Speaker, as we move forward, I want to believe that there are some of these things that are going to be sorted out by this Huduma number thing. But again, the Huduma number is also getting very complex. We are being warned that there's another process that is supposed to start another second generation of Huduma number. I don't understand why the government insists on making citizens of this country suffer for no apparent reason, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Honorable Ogola Ochanda, are you in support of the motion or you are not in support?
I'm in support. I'm in support in terms of the spirit and the principle, but I've indicated I'll be talking to the mover for purposes of some amendment, if
Correct.
necessary.
It is so procedural and very accepted in the parliament that you can still talk or you move an amendment to the motion, which members, as a matter of procedure, can be debated, but it's good to consult with, as you said very well, Mary Wamaua, and as a matter of procedure. Let me have the member for Trans Nzoia County, the Honorable Nangabo Janet.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to support this motion. Madam Speaker, a birth certificate is very important to our children, the way Maua has really put it. I want just to differ with the honorable member who has just spoken that this is just a small thing that you can just wake up and get it even tomorrow. It is not easy. It is just a small thing, but it is not easy to get it because we have some regulations that it is really when you go to ask for the birth certificate, you can see even somebody asking you, where did you give birth to these kids? Where is the father or where is the guardian of the kid? So, Madam Speaker, I support this database. If we can have them in our constituency, it will be very easy for our people to access it, Madam Speaker. It is true, people are saying that when you go for death certificate, it is very easy to get it. But it is not easy, Madam Speaker, because recently when my father passed on, they asked me whether he passed on at home or in the hospital. So it was the matter of procedure that I went to the chief so that the chief gives me the letter so that I take that letter to death and to get the death certificate, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, they are talking also about the Huduma centers. Yes, these Huduma centers came in 2019, but they are not effective because sometimes you can see when somebody has lost the ID, he goes there for replacement. It is not about the birth certificate, Madam Speaker. So we need that database in various areas so that our people can really access to it so that they can have the birth certificate for our kids. You see, when you take a kid to pre-unit in a primary school, you need to give out the birth certificate. And if you don't have one, they cannot admit that kid to that school. So, Madam Speaker, I just want to agree with the Wamaua so that we can have this database with us. Madam Speaker, when it goes to the challenges that we are really facing in in our areas, Madam Speaker, because each and everything, it is being directed to the chiefs or the assistant chief. But now when it comes there, you see that it can take even 6 months before somebody gets a birth certificate. And suppose now that person is a candidate. Madam Speaker, it seems as if he's going to miss out that examination, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, I support this motion and urge members of this House also to support this motion. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well. Then the floor goes to the member for Wajir County, the Honorable Hali Fatuma Gedi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity. From the onset, I would like to support this motion. And Madam Speaker, this is a very important motion for us. And every child, Madam Speaker, has the right to acquire a birth certificate. And every child has a right to go to school, Madam Speaker. And you very well know, without certificates, children cannot access services like school or even hospital. And Madam Speaker, in our Constitution, it is very clear, everybody has a right to have a citizenship of this country. And Madam Speaker, the challenge is, in many parts of this country, the dynamics are different. For example, where I come from, Madam Speaker, we have a border with Somalia. And many of our children, or even our citizens, they fail to acquire from childhood birth certificate, even ID, and they are forced, Madam Speaker, to go to countries like Somalia so that where they can get a citizenship. It is a big shame, Madam Speaker, to us. And I want to say this with confidence, Madam Speaker. This is a very, very touching motion, Madam Speaker. From the pastoralist area, where we saw, Jews, was it the day after yesterday? The day before, yesterday. I think it was on Tuesday, if I'm not wrong. They were giving us ultimatums, an irreducible minimum to the BBI, Madam Speaker. And yet, they're not even here to come and support this motion, Madam Speaker. It is really shame, very shame. Because the issues that we are asking for 50 years, issues of ID, death certificate, birth certificate, they were in press conferences and giving us a reducible minimum on those issues that they can legislate here. And some are issues of policy, Madam Speaker, that don't even require an ultimatum in the BBI, Madam Speaker. So, like the constituency, Madam Speaker, I come from, we get services, you can imagine, 120 kilometers to go and get birth certificate. And you can imagine how our roads are bad. They're very bad. So, as much as the honorable member, I want to congratulate and thank her really for this wonderful motion. As much as she's talking about data, from where we come from, Madam Speaker, we are not even yet there. We don't even have offices. You know, we don't even have enough staff. And the reason is because of the network, Madam Speaker. We are not even in 4G yet. So it is a very wonderful motion. And as I said, I think for us to tighten this, we'll also want to bring amendments to this motion, Madam Speaker. So with that, I want to thank the honorable member for this. And please, let us not use the pastoralists. And I want to say this to the pastoralist members of parliament. Let us not use the pastoralist community to incite them against the other communities. Because there's nothing called like pastoral. We're all Kenyans, Madam Speaker. And this is the time that we all need to unite so that we have one Kenya that we all wanted, Madam Speaker. And once we have one Kenya, all these issues will be sorted, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much.
Very well, indeed. Very welcome, Honorable Gendi. And the motion is, the member is Honorable Mary Wamaua, MP. She's the mover and owner of the motion. Let me have the Honorable Sagok.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to speak on this particular very important motion, especially for us, the pastoralists. So Honorable Gedi have said that there is nothing like pastoralists. Pastoralists occupy 80% of the landmass of Kenya. Assuming them and ignoring them is detrimental. Honorable Speaker, I want to congratulate Honorable Mary Wamaua for such a very important motion that she has brought to this House. Honorable Wamaua, I've known her, she's my friend, and she is an oasis of knowledge, and that is why she was able to come up with such a very progressive motion, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, for us, the pastoralists, because I will speak on behalf of the pastoralists, I was in the press conference, and since Kenya is on constitutional moment, we have also to bring our issues inside this House and even outside this House. BBI is not yet inside this House. We'll deal with it outside this House. We'll deal with legislative framework that are within this House, Honorable Speaker, I myself was born inside Amanyata with the assistance of a traditional birth attendants. My daughter was also born in Amanyata with an assistant from a traditional birth attendant who was my grandmother, who was around 100 years old. Honorable Speaker, to get the birth certificate in our region is a nightmare, Honorable Speaker. Because those who are born in hospital, at least you have a leeway of having registration in a hospital and a receipt, because the rest of my kids were born in hospital, Honorable Speaker, so it became a bit easier. But for my firstborn, or even myself, I got my birth certificate when I was 38 years old, Honorable Speaker. That is how difficult it is to get that very important document. And other people may think that is not a guarantee of citizenship. Honorable Speaker, but in every service that we seek in this nation, they require this birth certificate. If we want to go to school, they need this birth certificate. If we want passports, they need this birth certificate. So it is the single, very important document in our lives as Kenyans, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this motion tends to cure, in part, this particular problem that we go through as Kenyans, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I'm sure even inside Nairobi, for instance, Kibera, where people are born because of poverty, most of them give birth in their houses, Honorable Speaker. They go through difficulties that we go through as pastoralists to acquire this very important document, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, you know, sometimes we use harsh words that Kenya is tending to be a sadist country, Honorable Speaker. Because, Honorable Speaker, if it is easy to get a death certificate of somebody who have gone, who require no service anymore, and it's very difficult to require a birth certificate of that particular citizen who will require that document progressively going on for 80, 30 years, 50 years, depending on what God will give them, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we need to make this particular accusation of this document very easy, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I will talk with Honorable Maumau so that we can do some amendment, Honorable Speaker, because keep on urging the government, because it says this House urge the government. We don't urge, we pass. So if we are passed, we resolve as a government, that as an arm of government, that the executive part of government should implement this particular motion speedily and timely, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I don't know why we move towards Huduma number, and we are not even sure of the basic registration, Honorable Speaker. We like the Huduma number, we will support it, but let us make it easier for us to acquire basic documents like birth registration. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I support.
Very well, the member 001 you support. The Honorable Sosion Wilson.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to support.
Honorable member for the Honorable, I can see you're not very far, but you look. Are you anxious or? Oh, okay, you're not very far. He's always like that. He really wants to represent his people. Yes, Honorable Sosion.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to support this motion. Very critical, and I thank Honorable Wamaua for bringing this motion to this Parliament. Though it's about urging yet it's a very, very serious and important matter about keeping data of our citizenship. As I support Honorable Speaker, I wish to bring to the attention of the House and the nation that the global economy is going digital, and our Kenyan administrative system is going digital. And therefore, in a digital economy, it is still unfortunate that we have got to discuss on the very fundamental rights that our children should enjoy right from birth in terms of registration. Honorable Speaker, she has touched on the requirements of NEMIS and the fact that in our education system, no child is allowed to sit for examinations without a birth certificate. I support the NEMIS system in the Ministry of Education because of a number of facts that have emerged in the education sector. That one, the country is unable to plan in advance for capitation and funding and for education of our children. It is essential that even in 2020, the children who are born in this country are registered and known, and it is it's within then the government ability to be able to plan, knowing that in 2020, 5 million children have been born, their profiles are known, their locations are known, and even mapping of schooling can be done, so that then planning is done in advance. We cannot run an education system that operates in crisis, that we wait for a new academic year to start and look at the number of children who enroll. It should be known in advance. We should know every child who is born in this country at whatever time and plan for their welfare throughout the year. Honorable Speaker, the Ministry of Education, through free education, this is part of implementation of free education. It cannot be free if there is no planning. So fiscal planning is key. It is, I would rather, even this motion talked about registration being mandatory at the time of birth for all children born within the jurisdiction of the Republic of Kenya. And then number two, there has been a lot of fraud in the education system. That even recruitment to various training institutions, there are school leavers who use certificates that do not belong to them to join training and actually train and take up careers using certificates that are not theirs. This is a fact that if we are to audit our employees in government, quite a number of them are using certificates that are not theirs. And they've taken advantage of non-registration of citizens at birth. And so it is important, as we fight corruption, we cannot fight corruption without developing an honest and clear data that can be accessed at any time. And that is why when you are sitting for an exam, you sit for an exam with a birth certificate with you. And then there's been falsification of ages, even in the public service, that people change. Somebody at 55 will acquire a birth certificate at 55 and change ages. So, Honorable Speaker, this motion is important in many aspects to weed out and ensure that we run an honest education system that reflects the truth about our citizens. Honorable Speaker, NEMIS is essential, planning is important, digitalization is the way to go. And therefore, I think it should be legislatively mandatory for any child born in the Republic of Kenya to be registered at the time of birth. It is possible. Why is it quick to register deaths and very difficult to register birth? We are an open society.
Then let me have the honorable member for Kadhiani. Is also the deputy minority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity. Madam Speaker, I also rise to support this motion in the establishment, for the establishment of the database centers. Madam Speaker, first and foremost, I want to say that really this issue of of registration of birth is a big elephant in the room and has been a problem for a very, very long time. But this was brought to the fore several years ago, Madam Speaker, when the Ministry of Education decided that for every child going to school, they must be registered under NEMIS. And that was, they started first by saying the candidates, and later on, I think about 3-4 years ago, they said all school-going children. And Madam Speaker, immediately queues sprang up in every registration center in the country. And, you know, it was at that point that we realized it was really a mess, that a lot of our children were going to school and they didn't have birth certificate registration. Madam Speaker, as a result, very serious cases of corruption came up. And I remember at one time even the CS for Interior tried to handle those cases. Because what was happening is that because of the large influx, there were those that were even going very early in the morning and selling space in the queues. Because, I mean, if you go there, you'd not be able to be served within the day. There are also those who decided that because there was a shortage of the printing material, that they would actually, you know, sell it. And so if you go there and you queue the whole day and you give all the documents required, you probably would be told to wait for 2-3 weeks. But those that had about 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 shillings would go home with their certificates. Madam Speaker, that problem is still there up to now. It is still rampant because even up to now, a lot of our children do not have registration certificates. And that is because the government in its planning, when they came up with the plan to ensure that all children of school-going age have those certificates, they didn't put in place the requirements. They didn't put in place enough material. They didn't put in place enough personnel. And that is why that problem still persists up to date. So, Madam Speaker, in order for us to handle this issue, we need to ensure that the government is well empowered and the government has actually enough funds to be able to increase the personnel and the material required for that purpose. Madam Speaker, this proposal by the Honorable Maua is an excellent one because it proposes that when the children are born, then immediately the information is recorded in a database. This government, Madam Speaker, came into power on the promise of being a digital government. And I remember, as in NASA, we were told that we are analog. These are many years later, Madam Speaker, and it is important that this government actually walks the talk. It is important to ensure that our children are registered upon birth. It is important because the children are known. Now, I know there's a situation that the government is also a little afraid of. Because when you make it very easy to register people for birth, then it means even foreigners that have found their way to the country will probably get birth certificates. So I think this proposal that they are registered very quickly after birth will be able to deal with that problem. Because even when you look at the children we are registering in primary, some of them are in class 8. That's already a 13, 14-year-old child. That means 13, 14 years since they were born, they have never gotten certificates of birth. But if we do it at the first 1 or 2 or 3 years like it's being proposed, then that issue of infiltration by foreigners to get certificates from this country will also be cured. So I want to support, and I think this is a brilliant idea, and I would like to say that this is something that we need to cascade forward. After we've debated, we need to go into that mode of implementation. We have an implementation. Madam Speaker.
Very well. And now I give the floor to the member for Diwa, the Honorable Martin Owino.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was really yearning to go because of the distance that my people travel when they are seeking for this birth certificate. But first of all, let me say I support this, and I really congratulate Honorable Mary Wamaua for this motion. Access to documentation is one of the things that are frustrating Kenyans. And Madam Speaker, you know how stressed the communities are now, especially in the midst of this pandemic of COVID-19. I was of the thought that maybe later on I can talk to the originator so that we don't need to wait for 3 years for this certificate to be done. Registration should be immediate, as I heard from Rimbui. And Madam Speaker, we are in the digital age. Remember, over 2,000 years ago, Jesus had to travel to Bethlehem for registration. That was a long distance, but those were then. But right now, God has given us the capacity to digitalize our things. Even our chiefs are now very young men and young women. So when we talk of a database center, we are talking of a computer or a decentralized system. And one member also said that let us be also in the constituencies, then from constituencies to locations and sub-locations. I can imagine assistant chief having a computer. So when a birth process is in that location, they just go and get it into the database. So what is being waited for here now is only the certificate. And I was discussing something here with Honorable Nikal. Madam Speaker, you cannot have a tree or leaves without the roots. So the issue of IDs, the issue of passports, you cannot get them without birth certificates. So this is a very important document. Also, I wanted to allude to the fact that the originator might consider, because making this motion pass.
Now you're in order. You are
Thank
allowed to order. You must bow when you're getting to the house. Carry on, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for correcting that. We need order here. I was thinking, let this baby grow into a bill so that we can budget. One thing is to pass a motion, and implementing it is another thing. But I would like, if the originator agree with me, after we have passed this motion, which I'm encouraging our fellow members to do so that we can have a bill, a money bill that can give the department a lot of resources. Madam Speaker, birthing itself is very stressful for mothers. The process itself is very stressful. And when you have gone through that, you are not supposed to be subjected to another stress of getting documentation. There is a syndrome in this country where you are told your file is missing, and somebody is just sitting on it, waiting for some bribes to give the information. This is what we are trying to cure by digital. So if you say it is missing, I can easily log in and say, this is my file. But we don't need to go that far. So in short, Madam Speaker, I'm trying to allude to the fact that database center is not a building where people are going to queue. But let's make a system that recognizes those who are born and be serviced immediately. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the time, and I support.
Support. The member for Loima, the Honorable Kamais.
Okay.
Kamais or Kamais?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
You have a very, very, very long name.
For giving me this opportunity to contribute to this very important motion. First and foremost, I would want to thank my colleague, Omaua, for bringing this very important motion, and I think it's timely. Honorable Speaker, I think this motion should have emanated from a pastoralist, because the world where I come from, that is Turkana County, I border many districts of our neighbor country, Uganda. And as a result of lack of these very important documents, our people are prompted even to register across the other side, especially our pastoralists who cross from Kenya to Uganda to districts such as Moroto. So I think it will be very prudent if our nation or our country makes this an exercise that is meant to be very important for all Kenyans. Honorable Speaker, an area, a village of mine that borders Uganda is about 150 kilometers to the headquarters of Loima constituency. So our children who school at a school called Urum, that in most cases even appears in the media, have to walk long distances. Remember, they are pastoralists. Transport means is completely poor. So I think it will be very important that we decentralize this kind of service, even to the division level, so that those from poor background can also access these documents. So I would want really to support that it will be very important if we have civil registration centers, not even at the constituency headquarters, but also it has to go deep into a division or even a location level, especially for the pastoralist communities. That will help a lot. The name is, that is the National Education Management Information System. Compels every child to produce a birth certificate in order to register for KCP. So, for pastoralists who have to walk for longer distances to maybe to our headquarters or even to Lodwar, go queue, make long queues, Kenyan access this very important document. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
A member for Mogosho, the Honorable to take Cameroon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just rise to say I support this particular motion. This issue of civil registration is very important. Currently, we all know that for all the students or pupils in class 8 and the Form 4 students have to actually acquire these particular certificates or birth certificates so that they can actually enroll for the exams and even for future registration or future application of IDs. I think this particular motion is very, very, very important. We are experiencing a lot of problems for parents who have to travel long distance to actually visit the registration centers. In fact, I personally have been trying to intervene to try to get some in my, to get a registration center in my constituency, Madam Speaker. And actually, one of the challenges has been the lack of the finances to establish these centers. So I think this particular motion has come at the right time. We know the government has come up with various types of systems, NIMS, and even the NIMS is like the current idea of called Duma number. And all these actually require an ID, and an ID also requires a birth certificate. So I think this actually, it's timely that the government take this seriously. I agree with the member who said we need to raise the member. I think we thank the member for, to thank Mary Wamaua for this particular motion. That it can also, she can actually upgrade it into a bill, a money bill, so that actually we, the government can take it actually as a serious document from the from Parliament. Personally, the issue of extortion for many parents when they go and apply for this birth certificate, Madam Speaker, is very serious. I can find many parents have to go, they actually spend several days in some centers looking for this particular certificate, birth certificate. And hopefully, if we establish these registration centers near the, at least in every sub-county or in every constituency, that will go a long way in actually assisting parents from not being extorted by middlemen, and also that they will actually acquire these documents as early as possible. If this thing actually is streamlined and we have these particular centers, then I think it will be just come straightforward business that all babies who are actually born will be automatically registered in these centers, and the processing of birth certificates will actually be issued. So actually, this is a timely motion, and I actually support it, and I actually wanted that we can escalate it into a bill, and this will actually help us to actually commit the government specifically to setting up the centers. Because there's a motion, of course, the government can take their sweet time to say we don't have funds, we don't have what, because then we urge them to establish these particular centers. But I think if we make it an act of parliament, I think that will be a serious, it will be a law, and that will mean that they'll have to actually carry out the parliamentary decision. I know we have a committee dealing with implementation of motions, bills, or all other resolutions passed in this House. That is the implementation committee could take up this so that we can expedite this particular motion so that the government can actually implement it. With that, I support. Thank you.
Thank you, the member for Mogosho. And now let me have the floor going to the member for Ol Jorok, Honorable Mushira Mwangi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support this important motion by my friend Honorable Maua. Madam Speaker, the importance of birth certificate cannot be overemphasized. We know that the government needs real-time information for planning and efficient delivery of its services. It is therefore in the best interest of the government to have real-time information on the deaths, on the births that have happened in this country and the number of deaths, so that it has real-time information on the number of its population at each particular time for efficient delivery of services. We also know that this document is crucial for obtaining of certain documents like identity cards, passports, and, Madam Speaker, sometimes for inheritance purposes. Having said that, it is unfortunate that getting this document is still a challenge in this country. We still have some sub-counties which do not have a registrar of birth, where you find that the residents walk outside their sub-county to obtain this document. Madam Speaker, it is important that the obtainance of this document is streamlined and it is made easier for the parents of this country. Madam Speaker, sometimes we have people who walk a very long distance, pay a huge amount of money in terms of transport, and when they get to the registrar, they are told that the documents are not available. And sometimes they are taken back and forth. The matters are even worse where the child is born out of hospital, where you have to go to the community health officer, you are taken to the chief, you are taken to the deputy county commissioner, then you are taken to registrar, and you are taken back and forth, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the matter is even worse, especially where the mover said the child is born out of wedlock. And with the various court rulings that have been made, where it is said that the kids who have been born out of wedlock have a right to have their father's name, it becomes difficult where the mother is asked for the identity card of the father, especially when they are not in good terms. It's difficult to obtain such documents. Madam Speaker, I support this motion. We need to decentralize the issuance of birth certificate. We need to make it easier and smooth to get this document. Probably we also need to leverage on technology. We now have mobile phone technology, where everybody now, I think, has a phone. Most people in the population have a phone. If we are able to leverage on technology, it will be easier and smooth to get this document. I support, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, the member for Ojorok. Then we have the member for Tigania West, the Honorable Mutunga Kanyudio.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this motion. Honorable Speaker, I stand to support this particular motion. Honorable Speaker, I remember sometimes back in this House we were discussing a motion on establishment of civil registries in all the sub-counties in Kenya. That would have made it very easy for our people to access registration. Right now, Honorable Speaker, it is very, very difficult for parents to have their children registered, or rather to get birth certificates for their children. Some of them have got to travel long distances, and then they meet congested civil registries. I have an example of my people from Tigania West who have to go to Maua, which is about 35 kilometers away, and they also meet many other peoples from about 4 or 5 sub-counties who are seeking registration. And this becomes a major issue because they spend a lot of time. There is also rampant corruption because of the delays that occur in the process, and also the anxiety and the problems they go through. So it would be good if this particular motion could be borrowed from the other motion as well, to also call for establishment of civil registries in all sub-counties, And I dispute the fact that we do not need several registries. Honorable Speaker, if we can register, if we can have registrars of societies devolved to the sub-county level, then it is high time that we devolve the registrars of deaths and births. Honorable Speaker, it is easy to consolidate information from the birthplace to the civil registry as created in this particular motion, or as intimated in this particular motion. It is possible to get this data because most of the births these days occur in hospitals, and those that do not occur in hospitals are registered with the nearest hospital because the mothers and the infant will require some medical attention. So it is possible to have this data captured and relayed even on a simultaneous or almost immediately. Therefore, it is possible to update this data. Establishment of data centers is really key because it will help people not, first of all, to waste time traveling long distances, and also to source for such
opportunity to contribute to this motion. And from the onset, Honorable Speaker, I'd like to say that I support this motion. Honorable Speaker, only yesterday, as in the House, we looked at the review of the gender development policy 20 years after the first framework in 2000. A key concern, Honorable Speaker, was how we would want to ensure that we do not have any contexts in which there would be disadvantage to any of Kenyans, be they boys, girls, women, and men, because of some perceptions or limitations that accrue to culture. Honorable Speaker, as I support this motion, I am reminded, Honorable Speaker, that a number of times children do not have their rights protected, and children do not, in a way as has been clearly presented by Honorable Wamaua, do not get registration, because in cases where parents have a problem and we find that the requirement is that the father of the child must be presented, and Honorable Speaker, on a number of cases we will find that children tend to be with the mothers. I find this motion extremely useful because, Honorable Speaker, it not only is going to be an opportunity to address the best interest of the child, but, Honorable Speaker, it brings to light what we need to continue to look at, contexts where we, in a way, burden women as mothers with guilt and shame, and by extension, Honorable Speaker, stigmatize and make children who really do need very clear protection, very clear documentation that would enable them to not only participate effectively, but to feel that they can competently determine where it is that they would see as home. And so, Honorable Speaker, as I support this motion, I see that the creation of database centers will be a very important tool or mechanism for protecting the interests of the child. Honorable Speaker, when we think of the context right now where we have, even with the teenage pregnancies and the very many contexts where there are children that by and large, to an extent, do not seem to have any sense of proper protection, then we can see that if we were to have a clear clear database center, and if we would have a possibility where in this center we would be able to get these registrations, it would be very useful. Honorable Speaker, as I support this, I was going to emphasize, though, that I appreciate that Honorable Wamaua has indicated that we give ourselves a span of 3 years, so it would be from birth to 3 years. But given, Honorable Speaker, the challenges that accrue, it is my suggestion, and I would like to urge that we go in terms of ensuring that this is implemented. If we can get it to be digitally done, Honorable Speaker, it really should not be that difficult to get this at birth, so that we have a context in which we are protecting the interests of the children, in which we are ensuring that mothers, regardless, Honorable Speaker, of the status at that particular time of birth, that we would have these children registered. Honorable Speaker, as I conclude, because yesterday as I listened, Honorable Speaker, to our contributions on the gender policy, I still come to the issue where we would want to see that this kind of mechanism helps, Honorable Speaker, that we begin to review our attitudes, Honorable Speaker, because we have as society, in terms of some of the values, internalized behavior that do not provide equity and balance, and which, Honorable Speaker, seem in a number of cases to be putting women in a challenge. I therefore, Honorable Speaker, as I support this, do it because I'm sure that it will be a key way of ensuring that we no longer burden women with guilt and shame, we no longer withhold information, and we no longer make it a situation or a requirement that a woman cannot get to register her child without the approval of a man that he must.
Very well. The member for Likoni. Members, I can assure you that this motion has interest across the country. So I think no constituency is special to this. So let me have the member for Likoni, the Honorable Mboko Hamisi.
Asante sana Bispika kuweza kunipatia nafasi kuunga mkono hoja hii ambayo imeletwa na dadangu Mheshimiwa wa Maua. Bispika, kwa hakika stakabadhi hii ambayo tunaiita birth certificate ni stakabadhi muhimu sana, na ni stakabadhi ya kwanza ambapo mtoto akizaliwa anaweza kuipata stakabadhi kama hii. Stakabadhi kama hii ndio itaonesha umri wa mtoto huyu ambaye amezaliwa katika taifa letu la Kenya. Na tumeona changamoto nyingi sana ambazo Wakenya wengi wamezipata kupitia kupata stakabadhi kama hizi. Hasa tukiangalia wenzetu wa kutoka kule sehemu za Northeastern wamekuwa na changamoto nyingi sana, na hata kule kwetu Mombasa imekuwa ni changamoto kuweza kupata stakabadhi kama hii. Stakabadhi kama hii hivi sasa imepata umuhimu kiasi ya kwamba wanafunzi hawawezi kufanya mitihani katika shule zao wakiwa hawana stakabadhi kama hii.
Order. The member who is coming in. Allow me not even mention your name. Please, can you go back, bow, and come to the house? And members, let us be informed. As a matter of procedure, I think now we are doing our 4th year. It's important for us to note the procedures of the house. Because today I'm in a good mood. I don't want to mention the name. Yes. Thank you.
Asante sana Bispika. Anasema ya kwamba stakabadhi kama hii hivi sasa wanafunzi lazima wawe na stakabadhi kama hii ndio waweze kuendelea na mitihani yao katika zile shule zetu hapa nchini. Vile vile pia wakati unataka stakabadhi ya kusafiri lazima uweze kupata stakabadhi hii ya kwanza hata kabla hujapeana hichi kitambulisho ambacho ni stakabadhi muhimu pia katika taifa letu la Kenya. Kwanza ukifika katika ofisi zile utaulizwa ya kwamba uweze kutoa stakabadhi hii ya birth certificate. Na nataka niseme imekuwa ni changamoto kwa sababu si wazazi wote ambao wanajifungua ama wanazaa katika hospitali zetu ambapo wataweza kupata kile cheti kinachoitwa notification. Wazazi wengi ama kina mama wengi wanaweza kujifungua kupitia wakunga kule majumbani ama kule nyanjani. Hivyo basi pia inakuwa ni changamoto kuweza kuweka zile tarakimu ama mawasiliano katika zile taasisi zetu muhimu ili iweze kunukuliwa na kuweza kupata tarakimu za mtoto yule ili aweze kupata stakabadhi kama hino. Na nasema ya kwamba Bispika ya kwamba huu ni wakati mwafaka ambao teknolojia imebobea, na wakati teknolojia imebobea lazima pia twende na muondoko huo wa kwamba hata sisi pia tumebobea katika teknolojia. Hivyo basi kuweza na kuwa na ile center ambayo tunasema ni database center, mahali ambapo tutakuwa yale mawasiliano yote ama zile tarakimu zote zinazohusu stakabadhi nyeti na muhimu kama hizi zitaweza kuwa pahali pamoja, na pia zitaweza kugatuliwa kule chini mashinani. Kwa sababu juzi na jana tuliweza kufungua ile tunaita huduma center, mahali ambapo tunaweza kupata huduma tofauti ikiwemo stakabadhi hii tunayoizungumzia sasa. Lakini tunaona ya kwamba hizi huduma center zimewekwa katika sehemu zile za mijini ama ile miji mikubwa, na inakuwa pia ni changamoto kwa wazazi wengi ama Wakenya wengi kuweza kufikia pale ili kuweza kupata stakabadhi kama hizi. Basi iwapo tutaweza kupata hizi database ambazo zitakuwa kule nyanjani katika zile maeneo bunge yetu, ama kwa Kiingereza our sub counties, itakuwa ni sehemu ambayo hakuna Mkenya ambaye atakuwa na matatizo kuweza kupata stakabadhi kama hizi. Pia tumekuwa na changamoto ya kwamba tunapata watu ambao pengine si wa Kenya lakini wanataka kupata stakabadhi za Kenya kupitia njia ambazo ni za ufisadi. Lakini tukiwa na database kama hii, mambo kama haya yote yataweza kuchujwa na kuhakikisha ya kwamba wale ambao watapata stakabadhi kama hii watakuwa kweli ni walengwa na ni wahusika na ni wale haswa ambao wamezaliwa katika taifa letu la Kenya. Hivyo basi waweze kupata stakabadhi kama hizo. Vile vile pia wakati tunaweza kutimiza hoja kama hii, lazima tuangalie.
The member for Seme, Honorable Nicholas Wambura.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. I rise to support this and congratulate the member for moving it. And the basic purpose of this motion is to provide data at the civil registration centers that will make it possible to get birth certificates at these centers. I think that's the basic thing, and Madam Speaker, I support that. It must be possible and easy to get this document. It is the document that actually signifies your arrival in this world, your presence in this world, and then enters you into the national statistics. So without it, you may be in the statistics, but you don't exist. It even indicates your origin, biological origin, regional origin, and will have implications for the rest of your life. Madam Speaker, all the civil rights that we enjoy are actually based on this document. It is required for your enrollment into educational institutes, starting from early childhood educational centers, primary school, secondary school, and university entrance. Madam Speaker, it's also important for identification of your age for all purposes, legal purposes, recognition purposes, medical purposes, before we even go into other technical ways of getting the person's age. Madam Speaker, the biggest function of this is actually its link with the identification card. Without a birth certificate, you cannot get an identification card, ID. And without ID, Madam Speaker, you are not entitled to anything. You actually don't exist. You cannot get an employment without an ID card. You cannot get a passport without an ID card, without an ID card. You cannot get a bank, you cannot open a bank account. You cannot even get into the taxation system through the KRA PIN number. You cannot get a driving license. You are not even entitled to social protection services, even the funds that people get. Madam Speaker, you cannot even do exams at the university level, at the secondary school level. So really, there's a need for ease of getting this document at the nearest center at your time of need, which becomes very difficult and different if you are born not in the medical facilities. If you are born at home, then it becomes a major issue on how you will get this certificate. Madam Speaker, with that, we must just get the data into these centers. And I think what the motion did bring, in fact, these centers themselves, whether they're physical or digital, must be available at the nearest places possible, at least at the sub-county level. Madam Speaker, if you realize what people go through when they are looking for a birth certificate, there's a big problem, first of all, of distance. Two, of the information that you need to provide. Madam Speaker, there is no way around. Every person must get an identification certificate which comes through a birth certificate. And remember, even for you to have a death certificate, you must also have a birth certificate and an ID. Madam Speaker, I support this motion, but I would say, like other members have said, if this motion urges, I think the member must go forward and actually bring a bill so that this urges, it ends there. The government says, oh, it's urges, fine. Even the implementation committee actually will not get access to it if it remains at urges. With that, Madam Speaker, I support.
Very Honorable Nyikala, I can see the Honorable Wamaua, that is the sponsor of the motion, nodding. The member for Kajiado Central, the Honorable Kajori Lemusi. Next on the request, Mr.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also add my voice to this very important motion. And just like the other members have done.
And as a member contributes, honor members, even given with the directives of the President yesterday, and now that we've also been very disciplined in the National Assembly, the members who are not putting on or wearing their masks, well, please do it. No masks, no service. Otherwise, you'll be out of order.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for that guidance. Looking around, I think all members have worn their masks well, but we stand guided. So, Honorable Speaker, I thank you for this opportunity. And let me also, just like my colleagues have done, congratulate the Honorable Member for this motion. Honorable Speaker, this is a real representation. We are here, Honorable Speaker, to represent those people who have given us an opportunity to come to this House. We are here, Honorable Speaker, to speak on behalf of our people. We are here, Honorable Speaker, to address the challenges that our people are going through. And Honorable Speaker, a birth certificate is one of the challenges that face our people. It's a highly sought document. To an extent, Honorable Speaker, a lot of our people are forced to pay bribes, which is very unfair. So, Honorable Speaker, this is a very important motion. And just like the other members have said, I wish the Honorable Member would follow it through into an amendment of the law or a bill. Honorable Speaker, having said that, a birth certificate helps the government in planning as one of the importance of a birth certificate, because it tells the government the number of children who've been born at a particular time. And this kind of planning is important for every service that the government ought to provide. Honorable Speaker, for healthcare service to be provided to citizens, it's important that the government knows the number of children that have been born. For the government to put in place proper infrastructure for education, it's important that the government knows the number of children that have been born. Honorable Speaker, this kind of planning is very important because these children are going to grow into teenagers and into youth. And it is important, Honorable Speaker, because we are seeing a situation in our country that we just realize that the country has a huge unemployed population of the youth, and we start trying to come up with the solutions that are actually firefighting, the solutions that are not going to help the people. So this kind of planning from onset is very important, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, coming from a pastoral county, our people are going through hell. You can imagine an illiterate parent trying to go to offices that they cannot even speak a language, trying to get this certificate for their child. The school is pushing parents. You have to come up with a birth certificate. These people are forced to sell their livestock to go and bribe government officers for a document that is so important. Madam Speaker, the importance of this document cannot be overemphasized. For one to be identified as a national of a country, it starts with a birth certificate. And recently, Madam Speaker, just to finalize, we vetted in the Committee of Defense a lady who was born in Canada, but she's a Kenyan. And Madam Speaker, we should emulate from such countries. Just because this lady was born in Canada, it automatically gave her citizenship, the citizenship of that country. Anyone born in this country, Madam Speaker, we ought to have their records. We ought to have their records for proper planning. We ought to have their records for proper identification. And with those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I support. I thank you.
The Honorable Member for Nyando. The Honorable Representative of the people of Nyando.
I thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to delve into this matter that seeks to establish database centers in all civil registration centers in the country. And Madam Speaker, it is very good coincidence that it is coming at a time when we are shopping for a data commissioner. And this afternoon, this House shall be debating the suitability of the President's nominee for this position. So, Madam Speaker, this is a matter that we all ought to support because it seeks to address the gaps that exist in registration of our young people, particularly across this nation. Madam Speaker, identification documents ought to be a matter of right. This idea of stratifying the nation, that there are places where accessibility is easier than the rest, should be confined to the history books so we can treat this country as one and people have access to these most vital documents as and when they need them. But even as we do this, Madam Speaker, we must employ absolute abundance of caution because these documents are susceptible to abuse and at the same time susceptible to manipulation. We have seen in this country foreigners taking full advantage of any gap that exists in registration. And we have seen an influx of foreigners into this country who use backdoors to be registered, get our passports, even when real Kenyans do not have such a latitude. So the data commissioner who will be assuming her office in due course, if this House will be in agreement with the President, must make sure that there are very strong firewalls that would prevent any misuse or abuse of these documents that are very critical to the welfare of our country. Madam Speaker, we must amalgamate the documents that we have. And I think that is what Huduma number sought to cure. I have seen in many instances where if you lose your ID and you present yourself before the registration officer, the first question that they will ask you is a copy of the same ID that you are seeking to replace. So if we shall have these registration centers with an amalgamated system where all documents belonging to every individual Kenyan shall be kept, then this taking people around in circles will be a thing of the past. Certain cases when people lose their certificates, for instance, the Kenya National Examination Council certificate, and you apply for a photocopy or a duplicate copy or to access any other copy, the question that is common is, show us another copy that you already have so that we can process this. And these are documents that are right there with them. So in this digital era. We must ensure that everything is kept in one basket, and at the same time have all these centers closer to the people, because every Kenyan pays taxes in order that services can be availed to them. And therefore, Madam Speaker, I support this motion. And taking a tangent from my colleagues, this is something that we needed to midwife as a bill and have it passed to become an act of this House, and therefore it becomes a duty on the government to ensure that all these centers are availed at the doorsteps of every Kenyan. And I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well. The Honorable Danita Gatti. The Honorable Danita Gatti, are you on your intervention?
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. Madam Speaker, I'm not on any intervention, but I'm keenly here because of my next motion, if time will allow.
So your intention is to speak to the next motion. Very well.
Thank you.
Member for Nyamira County, Number Momanyi Monkina.
Honorable Speaker, thank you for giving me this opportunity so that I can also contribute to this motion. I want to thank and congratulate my friend Wamaoga for bringing this motion. And actually, what she has brought, this document is a very, very small document, but very important in the lives of our children, the lives of our people in Kenya, because there is nothing which a person can be given, or the services which a person can be given if, for example, he does not have the party certificate. If one wants to get the identity card, what he's asked first is the party certificate. If one wants to enroll in the pre-primary school, the document which is needed is the party certificate. If one wants to get a passport in Kenya, there is no way you can be given a passport, so that if you want either to proceed for further studies or if you want to go to any country from Kenya, you must produce a passport. So these documents, which are very essential, if one does not have a certificate of birth, which can enable him or her to get these documents, then the services which this person wants cannot be given or cannot be rendered. This motion, as most of my colleagues have said, should be a bill, so that as a parliament we discuss, we are able to give it life. As a bill, we can get, it can't be a money bill, because for it to be given to the villages where we want, it needs resources. For this database to be given, we know the government has got very good structures down there. We have people even up to Nyumba Kumi who can help get information, the information to come to the chiefs and sub-chiefs. Those are the areas where we can be able to get the database without problems, because our people, you know, most of them are very poor. They don't even afford transport, which can make them to travel, because the Huduma centers are in the centers which might be very far away from our people. So I am supporting this motion, and we are saying as a parliament that the implementation committee can only come in when we have made it a bill which is going to assist our people, so that this document can be availed immediately. A child has been given birth. This document is available the very day, so that when now we are sorting for other services, the documents are readily available. So my friend Wamao, we want to ask you, if you can make amendments, then this motion moves to be a bill. It is going to help not only the children of Kenya, but other people who have not been able to access the birth certificate. Thank you, and I support.
Very well. The member for Wajir East, the Honorable Hamin Kasim.
Thank
Elias
you.
RK.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to speak on this matter. And I want to congratulate my friend, Honorable Mary Mwamua, for bringing this motion, which resonates well with the people of Kenya. If you look at civil registration, and if she found it prudent enough that it's a problem in Muranga, it's equally much more of a problem in northeastern and northern Kenya. This challenge has been there. The people in the northern Kenya have not been adequately accessible to any registration center. The offices are not there. The dispensaries or health facilities which will be able to provide registration for birth certificates are not there. The offices are not decentralized. And the fact that they cannot be able to get birth certificates, they cannot equally get ID cards, identity cards. And this has been a big challenge. And if you cannot be able to get an ID card, then you are not considered as a citizen of Kenya. Why many a times the people of northern Kenya has really been affected by lack of the birth certificate and the lack of ID is the fact that we cannot be able to access civil registration at birth. And this has been a challenge to us, such that we are doubted whether we are true citizens of this country, because we are lacking very important documents which emanates from birth certificate or civil registration. So I'm really indeed very glad that you have been able to bring this. And I will suggest further that the civil registration center should be decentralized to sub-counties, locations, sub-locations, such that even certain activities that are going to be conducted, like immunization, which is ongoing, particularly in a number of stations in this country, that they should be able to provide certain information when are you born. All those documents that will be able to assist in the data. So we need to amalgamate, we need to harmonize all government interventions such that we can be able to get the right data that is required so that you can easily get the birth certificate as required. For now, what we have it as a challenge, entire sub-counties, the 6 sub-counties or the 8 sub-counties in Wajir County, you will only find 2 sub-counties that have a civil registration center. You can imagine the number of people who come and move from various parts of the sub-county so that they can be able to get civil registration for their children. And the kind of offices they have with this COVID, the offices are so narrow. The staff personnel that are attending to them are extremely very few. Then you will be able to realize that surely this is the kind of services that should be offered by an independent country. You still wonder. So what we are saying, and I'm glad that she has been able to bring, the Honorable Mary was able to bring this plight, so that we can be able to address it once for all, because we have brought an amendment earlier on the same of civil registration. It has not taken off, but when we anchor this thing in law, then we will consider ourselves as a true citizens, and the plight of the people in this region have really been considered, such that we don't need to pay bribes. We don't need to pay money to public servants so that we account ourselves as a true citizens of this country. These are issues we have undergone. And surely, that if we can be able to get a solution for this matter, either through an act of parliament or through a bill, where all the finances and support is provided for, then we will be able to realize that certain initiatives have been undertaken. And further to that, this is a digital government. Honorable Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, when he pledged a digital government, we need to see a digital government that captures each and everybody's identity, each and everybody's issues are captured so that we can be able to get an adequate services like any other citizen of the world. Thank you very much.
Very well spoken. The member for Kilifi North.
Grateful, Honorable Speaker, and thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to support this very important bill. And I want to congratulate the Honorable Mary Wamawa for this initiative and urge you that you move it from a motion to a bill and bring an amendment in the Civil Registration Act. And I think it will sail through very fast in this House. And if you bring it as a party motion, I think a party bill, it will go very fast. And probably before the end of this session, we'll be able to have it. But I also want to say this. It is actually a nightmare for families, especially Northeastern and the Coast region, to acquire a birth certificate. Because, in the Coast region, we have, and Northeastern, we have citizens of this country who sometimes are regarded to have come from Somalia or other places. And therefore, to have that person acquire civil registration right or his civil registration right, it is hindered by certain circumstances. But if we put all this matter in the database, it will be very easy. We will kill this thing called vetting. Before a child is given a birth certificate, they're called and they're told they must be vetted. You have Mzee wa Kijiji, you have Mzee wa Nyumba Kumi, you have the chief, and very many people to discuss the birth of a child, which is actually a fundamental right of that child. Now, these vetings have also come in with something called corruption. Because when these people sit around to determine that this child needs to be given a birth certificate, sometimes parents have to go a long way to ensure that they have greased the hands of these people and therefore be able to get a birth certificate. But I'm very certain that if we have a database, they don't need to look at anything. They just need to go to the database and know this is a child that belongs to so-and-so, and the parents' names are saved there and they're Kenyans, and therefore you do not need to determine the Kenyanness of a Kenyan by using a panel, a child who's been born in the country. And therefore, we will kill that thing called vetting, and therefore it will be much easier for those people that have always been looked at with suspicion. In my constituency, there are people who have been born there. We know their parents, we know their brothers, but when it comes to them getting a birth certificate or even an ID, they need to constitute a panel to determine the citizenship of a child. And I think this is something that can be stopped by this motion. Secondly, it's a fundamental right to have a birth certificate, ID. Your Kenyanness should not be determined by other people but the fact that you're born here. Kenyans actually become stateless, or they are stateless until when they are registered. Statelessness is something that is very bad. And you can imagine you've been born, you've gone to school, and then at class 4, then they realize at class 8, now when you need to be registered for an examination, then they realize that now you have to prove that you're a Kenyan for you to be entered into the NIMIS. What does that mean? It means the child's journey from class 1, or grade 1, to 8 is a stateless journey. The child doesn't have a state. Why? Because he doesn't have a documentation. But if there's a database that shows that this child, at the beginning, at birth, then the headmaster, the principal, doesn't have to send away a child to go home, call a parent, call a chief, go and get a birth certificate. It will be at his fingertips. Check the database and be able to enter this child because there's a number there provided and be able to give that child. The other point I need to emphasize, especially on statelessness, my constituency have people called the Pemba. The Pembas are Kenyans. I am not scared to say that they're Kenyans. But they have been treated in this country as stateless people until at such a time when politics is at its highest level. That's when there's a pronouncement from the state that they can be given birth certificates and IDs and therefore become Kenyans for the purpose of voting in a government. But you see, if we have a database, whether this child, as long as he was born in this country, in a certain village in this country, the child is a Kenyan and is entitled to a birth certificate and an ID. But the Pemba have been treated. You can imagine a child is born in this country because the parent is Pemba, the mother is Giriama, but that child will never ever get a birth certificate because he's said. But if you go to the US, any child born in the US, whether parents come from whatever country, and that's why we had an opportunity to have a Kenyan become a president of the United States. Now the world has become a small village, but still we want to treat other kids as if they are not Kenyans and yet they were born. Database. I am sure it will be easy.
Point of order. Point of order. But you're just, honorable member, you're just shouting. Is it a point of order, point of information?
Yes.
Are you on point of information or
Yes.
point of order?
Point of information.
Then, for that matter, as a matter of procedure, the honorable member, do you want to be informed by the member?
I gladly decline the information
You
because of
decline
my
the
time. I would like to
information.
finish what
Chair,
I'm
for the
saying.
purposes of Hansard, it was not a Kenyan who became a president. Barack Obama was a United States citizen, never held Kenyan
So, honorable member, it's
citizenship.
important for us to follow procedures.
Yeah.
Is he out of order? Please, if he's out of, you can state how he's out of order.
Yes, he's out of order
Yes.
because he's misinforming.
Give you the mic.
Is misinforming the House, Madam Speaker. Barack Obama was born of a Kenyan father but was a United States citizen. No Kenyan has ever become the president of the United States.
Very well, he's out of order, out of misinformation. Of course, he has to clarify that. But in future, the honorable member, if we are informing the House as a matter of procedure, the member must accept your information. So we have.
Stand guided.
Very well. Honorable member, you can pronounce yourself on that.
It's finished. What? There's nothing to say.
Just give him 1 minute. Just
A
to
minute.
pronounce himself.
I just want to say this. Kenyans suffer to walk long distances to become
Chairman.
Kenyans, to register as Kenyans. And in my county, we have large swathes of land. People have to travel long distances, especially when children are born at home.
I expected you to pronounce yourself to the being out of order.
I will do that, madam, but I want to finish this. I want
You
to
have
finish
only 30
this.
seconds, honorable member.
Out of order. Your time is over.
Honorable member, just I wanted you to make a clarification on
Yes,
that.
thank you for the information, and I withdraw that statement and say that Barack Obama was an American who became an American president.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I said we suffer long distances so that we can become Kenyans, and therefore, children who are born in hospitals have
Very
that
well.
problem.
Honorable member, you will have.
No, he's out of order.
Honorable member, order. Order. The member, I will not even mention it because I know that's what you're looking for. Order members. Remember, you will have a balance of 1 minute when the debate resumes. Remember, the debate on this motion, that is on motion number 8 by the Honorable Wamaoa, will have a balance of 37 minutes when it will be scheduled next for debates. Members, and the time being 1 p.m. As I appreciate the members who wanted to contribute to this. Members, the time being 1 p.m., the House stands adjourned until Thursday, that is today, the 5th November 2020 at 2:30 p.m. I thank you all.
You're out of order, boss. The thing is, you had already spoken. You had already spoken.
I just had to be on.
You had already.